Okay, we're back live now on Howard Street. There was a number of cars, police cruisers parked on Howard Street as we were speaking with you earlier. The group of protesters had moved north from Camden Street towards Pratt Street. Some of those protesters climbed on the cars and took some the garbage cans that are right here at the light rail stop and were breaking the windows of the police cars with those large trash cans. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, 5 police cruisers with damage, with windows completely smashed out. The line of officers that was earlier down at Camden Street started running north. You can now see them all posted up, trying to quell the protest. The site are on the west side of the railing at the Convention Center light rail stop. The officers in the riot gear are east of the railing in actual Howard Street in the southbound lanes. They're really facing down at this time. You'll see from time to time the protesters will throw something in the direction of the officers. But again, just moments ago, we saw a number of these police cruisers heavily damaged by those protesters. I'm counting 5 cruisers with damaged windows broken out, tires flattened, and other damage as well. One of the cars actually had something on fire inside of it a little bit earlier. An officer reached in and took that out. I was just told by a city police officer to watch my back as the officers continue to move down. Probably good advice in the environment we're staying in right now, just outside the convention center, right between where the convention center and the baseball stadium are. That's where we're standing. So you're looking at the group. There are some protesters with their hands up in front of the officers. So they're standing on Howard Street, just a little bit south of Pratt Street. That's where all this is happening right now. You can see this is one of the trash cans that was thrown at the police vehicles that are here. Another police vehicle here with serious damage. The windshield busted out. The driver's side window broken out as well.
Wow.
So what happened was there was a race between fans and the protesters, and police were trying to get them in as soon as possible. Fans were rushed into the gate. Police closed the gate, put up some barricades, and then bottles, batteries, metal objects were started thrown at police, including an orange, it was a metal, it looked like a bike rack to me, was tossed to police, including a trash can. And then the protesters on the opposite side of where this was going on, they were walking down the street peacefully. And then all of a sudden, they started arguing on both sides of where police were stationed. And then they traveled across the street. And things got a little bit out of hand across the street. They started throwing bottles. They started disrupting, turning over trash cans, etc. A cousin of Freddie Gray was trying to calm everybody down, and it didn't work. She was saying, please stop it, stop it. Being in jail is not going to help us.
Many people now moving toward the Camden Yard protest area. They are moving to Camden Yards in that area. These people and protesters are hanging around now. The majority of them, close to 1,000, have moved to Oriole Park. That's where our own Christian Schaefer is right now. Christian, if you can hear me, describe the scene as it's happening there at Oriole Park.
Okay, guys, yeah, we're live right here at the corner of Camden Street and Howard Street. So we are directly outside of Oriole Park at Camden Yards, coming to you live right now. The protest that was earlier at City Hall has moved to this location right outside the Orioles game, which is scheduled to start at 7 o'clock. But look around, you'll see these police officers in riot gear trying to hold this position at Camden and Howard. The protesters are basically right in their faces, and they've been throwing some bottles, some plastic canisters have been thrown also. Baltimore City Police in a defensive position out here. They're also stationed at various parts of the actual stadium itself, and they've closed down several of the typical entrances that you'd use to get into Camden Yards on a normal baseball game. This would appear to be anything but.
Don't shoot!
The chant right now is hands up, don't shoot, which we of course heard starting in Ferguson, Missouri.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
At this hour, we're seeing the protesters confronting the officers face to face. Some of the protesters here are trying to tell some of the other protesters to stay calm, stay on message is what they're actually saying. Some of them, they're having a hard time doing that. This is a very emotional scene out here, which is earlier at several different locations around the baseball stadium. Now it's pretty much right outside of it here on Howard Street, with officers lined up elbow to elbow, trying to keep everyone safe, including themselves. Protesters, of course, angry over the death of Freddie Gray in police custody. So we had the march earlier today in West Baltimore, eventually made its way down to City Hall where there was a rally, and now it has moved over to Oriole Park at Camden Yards.
This is the people choosing.
Here on our scene, I can see Kevin Davis, who was recently hired. He was the chief of the Anne Arundel County Police Department. He's recently been hired as Baltimore City as one of the deputy commissioners. You can see there he's not wearing his helmet like many of the other police officers have here on the scene. And he was inspecting one of the plastic canisters that had been thrown at officers here a short time ago. So high levels of the Baltimore City Police Department's command out here at Camden and Howard right now, facing down the protesters.
Let's find these kids. Got 2 missing kids. 2 missing children.
Hey, yo, he from Montgomery. Hey, yo, he's racist. He already racist. They gangsters out there.
Just saw another bottle being thrown there.
Ain't no water bottle gonna hurt you. You got a helmet and a gun. And a bulletproof vest on. You got it. We the ones that ain't ready. We won. We still won.
Hey, y'all, listen up. You better take this motherfucking march on up, man. You better go to motherfucking Western District and let these bitches have work. Yeah. Niggas bluffing down here. They bluffing for real. We got these bitches right here in our Florida pocket. We got them surrounded. So if everybody believe in Black Car, we gonna do Black Wild shit. You know what I mean?
Fuck all of them.
We all gonna stand together. We gonna stand together.
Protests ruled the day. Thousands took to and briefly took over some of the busiest streets in Baltimore. And then the demonstration turned ugly. Violence and vandalism delivered by anger and frustration. Pent up, some say, from years of harassment by police. City police had their hands full. Trouble began with a foot race to get fans into Camden Yards before protesters stormed a gate. Demonstrators bombarded police with bottles, batteries, food, and more. Protesters broke business windows. Witnesses say the demonstrators became angry at baseball fans and started lighting trash cans on fire, then throwing bottles at crowds gathered in front of a strip of bars next to Camden Yards. This became too much for a cousin of Freddie Gray. Melissa Ely had been pleading, just stop, let it go.
Don't let the fact that my cousin died be in vain. Don't let the fact that his family, we have to mourn and grieve and bury him, be in vain. But busting up stores from people that had nothing to do with it is not the way.
Demonstrators also engaged in a rolling blockade of streets. This action repeated again and again. Some protesters carried large sticks and big rocks as they moved through the city. The peaceful element of this crowd stood by their message.
Really what drives me is what's on my sign. It says in Leviticus that you shouldn't stand idly by when your neighbor's blood is shed.
I think it's critical that, not just African Americans stand up against police brutality. This is something that affects our entire community here in Baltimore.
This is one of the sticks that some of the protesters were carrying. I mean, it's a stake, really. It was pointed at the end. They were walking up the street here, or Utah Street, with this a few hours ago, and they had several with them, including rocks. The police presence broke that up. Reporting live from downtown, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
You sort of raise your hand.
Oh, look at
that.
that.
My goodness, look at this. They're shaking something in there. Who knows what that is?
Is that a car?
Golf cart. They just turned a golf cart over. That's in the parking garage.
Wow.
Where do you think you are, Roy?
Well, that's northbound Light Street. I want to say, well, it's at St. Paul Street now, so it would be St. Paul Street at the parking garage near where that split is.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, and they're still working their way northbound. But, you know, you were saying if people don't care about the consequences, you're not going to stop them.
Yeah, true.
You know, if you don't care about getting arrested or doing property damage or having your picture taken, you know, and then say they do get caught, what happens?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I hear you.
Absolutely
There's
nothing.
A bench,
so,
someone just
I mean, look at this poor individual here trying to take and get away from it, and they're walking right in front of his car.
Yeah.
And Roy, these folks that we're looking at right now, they are coming from that location where Jane was, right, at Pratt and Light.
Right, that's the Pratt and Light location.
And there are still people there.
Look at this.
Oh yeah.
You know. So I mean, yeah, the people that were Pratt and Light, this is that group, and now they're just going ahead and start, you know, destroying things, causing havoc to motorists, destroying property. You just saw them turn over. Look at them trying to take and do the bust out the window.
Oh, wow.
Right there.
I mean, you know.
See, hit and run.
Right, and this is, you know, at the crux of this is people were talking about protecting their city and, you know, giving a voice to your city, and then to just destroy your city, I just can't fathom it, you know, and I just.
Well, some of the good news is it's starting to rain.